Hello kids and squids, and welcome to another episode of No, seriously, what the fuck is happening in Darktide? The Bound by Duty update brought us a new Mortis Trial map, and of course, some new memory echoes. These new memories bring some of the lore from Fat Shark's YouTube channel into the game, adding 3 Vox intercepts as memories, and expands on the relationship dynamic between the leaders of all these Imperial offices showing up and declaring themselves in charge of the war. This is a delicate situation that more often than not in 40k lore would likely devolve into bloodshed and a small internal war between these official offices of the Imperium. But for now, we thankfully have the secret glue keeping everything held together. Interrogator Iven Rannick. Obey my cat! Hit the subscribe button. These new memories are all over the place as far as where they're at in the timeline, and the first set of these Bound by Duty voice lines are Explicator Zola's. Orgustine Zola's memories take us quite a bit back in time of Darktide's story to shortly before she sends us to try and capture one of the Karnak twins in the Orthus offensive.
We are blind down in the Torrent.
It's Wolfer. Let me drag him back here by his heels.
Zola is heading up responsibility for bringing Wolfer in, and we already know that there's 2 main reasons why. The first is that Wolfer escaped the Tankard Bastion under her watch. It was her assignment from Rannick to go and bring Wolfer into him for questioning. Since this happened under her leadership, she likely considers it a mistake that she personally should be responsible to fix. On top of that, the Orthus offensive makes it clear that she likely suspects Wolfer is her long-lost brother, Tibber and Zola, and is on a personal mission to prove this dreadful gut feeling one way or the other.
Probabilities do not support that conclusion. This is what Interrogator Rannick will say.
At least speak to Grendel about this.
This is the first instance of what will become a recurring theme in these memories. Everyone seems to have their own idea of what Rannick would think or what he's going to say. In this instance, Hadron believes that Rannick will say there's no way in hell Zola would be successful in bringing Wolfer in by herself. And he probably wouldn't be wrong. Wolfer slipped out of her grasp on the Tankard Bastion and had one of the top reject strike teams on the ropes in one of Darktide's early trailers. Wolfer himself is a formidable opponent. Zola immediately wants to opt to go over Rannick's head and straight to Grendel, which is another recurring theme for her in particular. For example, she bypassed Rannick to bring our convict characters in as new operatives.
Augustine, I can't help but notice that you've gummed up my delicate operation with hundreds of condemned criminals.
You're always complaining about lacking manpower. Besides, Grendel approved everything.
Zola must agree with Hadron's assessment if she doesn't even want to bother wasting her breath asking for permission from Rannick, and Grendel doesn't really seem to mind this behavior as he promoted Zola to Explicator.
One of us should be on good terms with her. Explicator Zola.
You're promoting me?
Grendel is. I'm watching you.
Allows Hadron to run missions that bypass Rannick's approval.
Perhaps you'd enlighten me as to the reason for this grand excursion.
Grendel permits me certain latitude in the pursuit of techno-archaeological discovery.
And other activities by the warband's other ranking officers that Rannick would at least normally want to be aware of.
Grendel will speak when Grendel wishes to speak.
2 things. 1, Hadron is pretty clearly saying, I'm not gonna get involved with Zola's wanting to go above Rannick's head this time. And 2, why did you say it like that about Grendel, Hadron? What do you know about him? Tell me, you cybernetic bitch!
Have Recon 12 reported in yet? I'm expecting word on Wolfer's latest move.
Recon 12 never left the Morning Star.
What happened?
Their assignment didn't show up on the duty roster, so I pulled it.
You did what?
You heard, and you're damn lucky I did. Rannick's been watching the comings and goings like a cyber raven lately, especially where Wolfer's concerned.
Without an avenue to get Grendel to sign off on her agenda, Zola decides to simply just forge forward. If she were to succeed in bringing in Wolfer, certainly that would be a situation where begging forgiveness is worth the risk of not asking permission. But Sergeant Major Morrow has a keen eye for when bullshit loopholes are being exploited, probably because he's used more than his fair share, and whether she likes it or not, he's going to step in and give Zola a good fathering.
You want to live in the doghouse, that's on you. But don't go dragging my soldiers in there with you.
Since when were they soldiers to you? I thought they were rejects.
Them only rejects when they can hear me.
The loyalty of the trenches, is it?
Something like that. I don't expect you to understand.
We've all known for a long time that Morrow has a soft spot for the rejects, and now we know that they earned it by scraping by in the trenches, fighting against all odds, and being reliable in seeing a mission done to its end. They've earned his respect and loyalty, and he'll go to bat for them. Zola is surprised to hear this, probably because everyone generally seems put out by her convict work release program.
You can't even keep a mission all the way off the books without getting caught.
But you can. Is that it?
Don't know what you mean. Also, I don't know anything about the launch from Hangar Bay 12 Gamma 9 that's happening right about now. I expect it's a glitch in the data logs, if you follow.
I believe I do. Thank you.
Just keep it quiet, got it? And don't do nothing stupid.
After some light chiding, Morrow reveals to Zola that he's intervened and gotten her strike team out of the Morning Star in a way that Rannick wouldn't pick up on it, which arguably is Morrow condoning Zola's actions. If he was concerned that his soldiers were going to be lost in the encounter, he likely would have stood in her way. But either Morrow sees the pursuit of Wolfer or Zola's personal investment in it a worthy enough cause to risk the losses, or he doesn't think the risk of loss is that great. And what's more, Morrow is not only willing to sneak around behind Rannick's back to make it happen for Zola, he's willing to teach Zola how to be better at avoiding Rannick herself. Morrow demonstrates this even further once Rannick starts asking questions.
Explicator Zola isn't answering her Vox.
Yeah, well, she's probably planet-side. Been doing a lot of that since Wolfer escaped the Tancred Bastion. Swore blind she had your full authority.
Oh, did she now? How very assertive of her. Still chasing Wolfer, is she?
Couldn't say so.
Indeed. Carry on, Sergeant Major. We have a war to win. The Emperor protects.
Let's hope so, sir.
Morrow covers for Zola, not exactly lying to Rannick's face, but definitely not telling him the whole truth either of the full extent Zola has been using resources to this end, or that he's been helping her do it. I feel like this is a good moment to pause and remind everyone that as far as Zola going planetside and doing personal business goes, she kind of did have Rannick's authority to a degree, which is where the bullshit loopholes Morrow was sniffing out I mentioned earlier comes in. Back in Zola's memories from before she was promoted to Explicator, Rannick told her this.
And if you take this as an opportunity to settle old scores, kindly do it discreetly.
In order to settle old scores, Zola would kind of need to be moving back and forth between the Morning Star into Tertium. And we also know that this is with relative freedom because of the conversation Rannick has with her after she's paid the Ragged King a visit.
I understand there was some commotion down in the Torrent. I did ask you to be discreet.
In the settling of old scores, this was strictly business. It opened up a new line of investigation.
Ah, that's different.
Alright, so let me be clear here. Permitting Zola a certain amount of agency to attend to personal matters, and even being okay with her venturing off on her own to pursue official investigations without Rannick's approval, is a very different matter compared to her trying to hunt down an arch-heretic as dangerous as Wolfer. That much is abundantly clear. We know that Zola is aware of this because she wants to go over Rannick's head directly to Grendel. However, if Rannick is so concerned about having a close eye and final say in the comings and goings of officers and strike teams, especially considering that Grendel will clearly communicate and grant permissions that he's not aware of, then this is a bad precedent to set. Strong leaders don't give and revoke trust and agency from their people at the drop of a hat. Although, I'm not convinced Rannick is the tight-fisted dictator everyone else in the warband seems to say he is behind his back, and the reasons why become more clear as we continue through these echoes.
No good, Mom. They're too joking. Oh, curse you, Milk. You told me these were the best you had.
Movement! I've got movement at the blast gate!
What's wrong? Run out to convicts to send to their deaths? There's still room in the cauldron if you're feeling lonely. Is that Rinda, the butcher of Ragnar? I know you're out there, Zola. Wolfer said you had guts. I want to see 'em up close.
Mum, we have to go.
All right. Masozi, this is Zola. We're pulling back to Extraction Delta Nexus. Coming in hot.
Zola is in Tertium, and she takes point and puts her own boots on the ground in another attempt to chase down Wolfer. The endeavor is not going well because Randic was laying in wait, ready to pounce on the warband team. Zola cursing Melk implies that the team she's taken with her this time are some of his Auric operatives, since they're the best he had. And this encounter with Rinda likely takes place after the first two Carnival missions, in which Roden or Randic will ambush our rejects and try to kill them at some point in the mission. That's why Rinda calls out Zola specifically, asking if she ran out of convicts to send to their death. It's also clear that Wolfer knows Zola personally because he's told Rinda that Zola has guts, and now Rinda wants her to make a rash decision to try and prove herself. But Zola keeps a cool head and extracts successfully with her team. This memory and the portion before with Rannick and Morrow talking were originally Vox Intercepts 2 and 3 found on Fat Shark's YouTube channel. I know at first glance that might seem less than exciting, but keep in mind that to this day, more than 3 years since Fat Shark started releasing Voxes, there's still a decent portion of Darktide's audience that cares about the story and lore that also don't know the Voxes even exist. People who do know about them have been asking why they aren't in the actual game, so it's really nice to see Fat Shark taking that feedback and incorporating the Voxes in to make them accessible in the game, even if some of us have already heard them before. Now that we've learned a bit about Zola and what exactly happened between her and other officers on the Morning Star that eventually lead us to the Orthus offensive, we skip ahead in time with Sergeant Major Morrow's memories.
Auspex arrays report contact with another 6 heavy landers, sir.
Why are we only just seeing them?
All this rad flare activity from the sun is...
This memory was originally Vox Intercept 8 from Fat Shark's YouTube channel. It begins with Morrow talking to a Vox operator, reading out that they're picking up ships on Auspex scans, specifically heavy landers. This is an interesting tidbit of information. The only heavy landers by name that I'm aware of in all of Warhammer 40,000 are the Tetrarch heavy landers, which are Imperium ships first mentioned in the 4th edition tabletop game expansion book Apocalypse and the background book Tactica Imperialis. The Apocalypse expansion rulebook was published in 2007, and one of the authors of that book is the man credited as Darktide's main writer, Matt Ward. Tactica Imperialis was also published in 2007 and was written by another foundational Darktide writer, Dan Abnett. So, who's on board these 6 heavy landers?
All this rad flare activity from the sun is...
You're Sergeant Major Morrow.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissar Dukane, of the glorious 53rd. At Lord Margrave's request, this war zone is now mine.
Most likely, it's the initial deployment securing drop zones by the Mobian 53rd Regiment led by Commissar Dukane. If that is the case, 6 heavy landers implies that the 53rd is quite sizable in number, given that one Tetrarch heavy lander can carry at least an entire company of troops. Of course, we're without complete context as to the regiment's size for the 53rd or if they employ any machinery such as tanks, but still, 6 heavy landers is nothing to sneeze at for reinforcements. Dukane's interruption of Morrow's conversation is the first contact anyone in the warband has with her.
The situation is too serious to be left in the hands of a dilettante, even one as storied as your master.
Right out of the gate, Dukane shows some serious gall. Morrow's master she's referring to is clearly Inquisitor Grendel, as Rannick would not yet have enough experience under his belt to be considered storied. By using the word dilettante, she's calling Grendel an amateur. A legendary and celebrated amateur, but still a leader past his prime and lacking the experience to lead what should purely be an Astra Militarum engagement, at least in her eyes, and apparently the eyes of Lord Margrave as well. That's a massive insult to say so flippantly about an Inquisitor, much less one of Grendel's status if he is in fact a Lord Inquisitor. This insult and complete lack of consequences demonstrates perfectly how Grendel, Rannick, and the inquisitorial retinue here handling Atoma as a whole are all of the mind that conflict between potential allies allies should be handled with diplomacy first and foremost where possible. The rank of Commissar doesn't rival Inquisitor, not by a long shot. Even being requested by Lord Mobian Margrave wouldn't protect Dukane if Grendel was running the kind of operation where running your mouth would get you executed. But a Commissar is still an officer, and Morrow, both being a military man and knowing how dangerous an upset Commissar can be, respects her position enough to not tell her where she can stick her orders from Margrave.
You're taking command, Mom?
Do you object?
No, Mom. Only perhaps you could speak with Interrogator Rannick.
You do it. I have a war to win. The Emperor protects, the Guard prevails.
Dukane makes it clear that she thinks herself above Interrogator Rannick, not wanting to waste her time with the formalities of declaring her position and orders to him directly.
What do we do, Sarge?
What do you think? We keep our heads down. Oh, tell the Interrogator that I need a word.
And speaking to Rannick is exactly what Morrow does. This first encounter between Morrow and Dukane is the precursor to the unlocked and loaded narrative trailer released back in September of 2024, where we get to see the conversation Morrow has with Rannick informing him of Dukane's arrival.
What do you mean we've received reinforcements?
The Mobian 53rd, sir. Just arrived. Requested by Lord Margrave. Led by one Commissar Dukane. Says she's taking command of the war zone, sir.
Does she now? How forthright. Well, the Emperor protects.
Going this way. Move your feet, almost there.
Yeah! Nothing like seeing England when
On the answer! Strike zone secure, Mom. The heretics are falling back. You'll have your HQ in no time.
It's a trap, of course.
Could be, sir.
You better get a team in the air.
Rannick seems overall unconcerned with Dukane's sudden declaration of control over the battlefield in this trailer, which demonstrates he probably finds himself in agreement with Morrow's handling of the situation. While much lower in rank and authority, Rannick still isn't interested in dealing with the noise of inviting Dukane to have a temper by needlessly pushing back on her. At this point in the war, the Mobian 21st have been significantly wiped out in numbers due to unwittingly taking tainted stims that infect them with the pox. Militarily, the warband is lacking in power, and Rannick is a smart and shrewd enough man to see 6 heavy landers of reinforcement and a Commissar willing to take heading military operations off his plate as nothing but a positive. So long as she shares Rannick's same goal in retaking hab zones and purging them of heretics, Dukane poses no real problem. This trailer also sets up the rolling steel operation where our rejects are sent to stop a train loaded with explosives barreling toward the Barbican Gate transit station where the recently arrived Mobian 53rd have set up their headquarters of operation. On Darktide's timeline, this places Dukane's arrival and first conversation with Morrow after the events of the Orthus offensive, but before the events of the Dark Communion. We can be sure of this because the Dark Communion mission was introduced as part of the Grim Protocols update for Darktide's 2nd anniversary in 2024, and the narrative trailer for this update shows a soldier of the Mobian 53rd carrying vital intelligence meant for Explicator Zola and other members of the warband.
How are the 53rd drill sergeants settling in? How rejects driving them mad yet?
Not at all, sir. Turns out a little training goes a long way.
Don't tell me, tell the Interrogator.
I'd rather not, sir.
Another member of the warband again shows hesitation to even speak to Interrogator Rannick. His reputation as a tightly wound, cold man who treats those under his command with an air of being condescending precedes him.
Sire Milk reports combat metrics are up. Drilling teaches the techniques.
And combat tempers them into survivors. I am a soldier, you know. Used to be anyway.
Sorry, sir. There was one more thing. Sergeant Hecate says it's a pleasure to work with you again.
Eh?
Apparently you fought together at Knox Alpha years ago.
She's mistaken.
You're sure, sir? She sounded very certain.
She can be as certain as she likes, so long as she keeps my rejects in fighting shape. That'll be all.
Sir.
Alright, now this is weird. In the first set of Morrow's memories, we learn that he was sent to Knox Alpha on Inquisition business. Some kind of espionage that put him face to face with Lieutenant Byron Wolfer.
Knox Alpha, eh? Not much of a world.
I agree, though that's never stopped the Imperium going to war.
I'm not sure about this. Espionage isn't my line.
Ah, nonsense. You're a soldier's soldier, and relief troops are arriving all the time. Just be yourself, and you'll blend in perfectly.
You there. Identify yourself. Sergeant Major Morrow, sir. This is Brunt. Inspection assignment from Sector Command.
It is certain that Morrow was there, and he and Brunt commandeered a Valkyrie with Wolfer's authorization to go off-site of the 6th encampment to investigate something. We're never told what. It seems likely that at some point during this excursion, Morrow met and worked with Sergeant Hecate. Why is Morrow so dicey about this? Why is it something that we as an audience can't know? Given that we as an audience have also been shown that the Xanatros purgation involving gene stealers and some of the aftermath happened, and that Morrow is generally pretty forthright with the people under his command, it makes me wonder if whatever he and Brunt were out there investigating was so important and top secret that it would spoil information for us as players if we were to know now.
You wanted to see me, Mum?
Indeed. You may stand at ease.
I don't really do at ease, Mum.
As you prefer. I have studied your rejects' recent performance. It would appear that the 53rd's training regimen has awoken their potential. Would you concur?
They've always punched above their weight, Mum.
Morrow may not do at ease in general, but I'm willing to bet he sure as hell doesn't do it around Dukane. Between Mark, the Commissar who was corrupted by Khorne that Morrow killed on Armageddon, and Magson, the heartless bastard who pushed the Mobian 6 to the brink of corruption, Morrow knows better than to let himself relax around a Commissar. Dukane, of course, tries to take credit for the capabilities of the rejects, claiming it's the result of the intervention of the 53rd, and Morrow diplomatically speaks in support of his adopted kids.
Kindly have these individuals report to me at once.
Havoc missions, eh? Not many walk away from those.
Only the best. We shall see just how good your rejects truly are.
Alright, so Havoc missions are part of the story canon, which begs the question, are all of the modifiers also recognized as things that are really happening within the story? All the demon hosts from the summoning rituals? All the new stimmed up enemies? The goo?
Does the Interrogator know about this?
Does it matter?
No, I suppose not.
That will be all, Sergeant Major.
Again, Dukane brushes off any concern about coordinating her efforts or orders with Interrogator Rannick, wrongly assuming herself to be above him in authority. And again, because she does an effective job, Rannick is happy to oblige in indulging her delusion. Honestly, Iven Rannick is probably the most nuanced, well-written, and misunderstood character in all of Darktide. He's actually come to be my favorite character, and has been since the introduction of the Clandestium Gloriana mission.
Mobian steel is not, alas, all it was, but the same can be said of any of us, can it not?
He's a man whose status and office demands that he keep everyone under his command not just at 1 arm's length, it has to be like at least 2 at minimum. In Grendel's absence, it's his job to try and keep the front line of the war stabilized, kicking the heretics and traitors out from the hab zones they've taken over. It's his responsibility to keep the warband on the Morningstar working together effectively, free from information leaks by traitors, and keep the shipmistress of the Morningstar happy so as not to completely wear out their welcome. It's an unenviable position that was hard enough when the 21st, Grendel's ragtag group of found family, Randall's actual psychopathic family, and a few hundred convicts were all Rannick had to worry about. Now, a Commissar who's playing Colonel has stormed into the mix, creating a power dynamic confusion by declaring herself in charge. And even worse, she's demanding some of the warband's best operatives to report for duty on actual suicide missions, and she's intentionally keeping the person in charge of these people still in the dark about it. But at the end of the day, Rannick knows that it's diplomatically beneficial to just let Dukane do what Dukane gonna do, because having the numbers of presumably 6 heavy landers worth of troops is too valuable of backup for them at this stage of the war, and it isn't worth ruffling the feathers of Lord Mobian Margrave, leader of the entire domain, over.
I heard you wanted to see me, sir.
Yeah, inside. You got a report for me?
You were right. Explicator Zola's been planet-side a dozen times since that business at the Cathedral. Nothing on the logs. No orders cut by Dukane or Rannick. At least, not that I can see.
Oh, she's picking at Wolford like the scabby is.
At this point, we've jumped forward in time to after the Dark Communion, the most recent mission both in the timeline of Darktide itself and the most recent mission that we have received as an audience. It's not surprising that Zola is compelled to renew her hunt for Wolfer, as she was able to listen in firsthand to business between him and his superior that he argued with throughout the mission. There's also all the talk about the power and the bond between siblings the cultists are highly interested in. Suspecting Wolfer is her brother, all this put together is probably alarming to her, and Zola's desperation to learn the truth is likely at a fever pitch.
What does she think she's playing at? Rannick gave her a long leash, but Dukane won't.
Is Dukane really in command, sir?
She thinks she is. That's all that matters.
And the Explicator?
For now, you just let me know her comings and goings. Don't let her catch you snooping around.
I'll be discreet. You learn that scraping for sour milk.
I don't want to know, but good work. And not a word to the Commissar, you hear?
From his first-hand experience with Commissars, Morrow is deeply concerned for Zola's safety if she continues to break ranks and go over the chain of command to pursue her hunt. He knows it's only a matter of time before she gets caught by the one person who won't let it slide, and as soon as that happens, it's Zola's unceremonious execution. At this point, Morrow seems like he's kind of a father figure in her life, looking out for Zola and trying to teach her how to sneak smarter. He may have taught her too well, because now she feels comfortable doing it under Dukane's nose. It seems Morrow again decides to keep this information to himself, as we haven't seen any indication he lets Rannick know what's been going on behind his back once more. With that development, we skip ahead in time again to the moment the Adeptus Arbites arrive on the Morning Star. Their arrival takes place sometime after the cutscene where Rannick formally inducts your operative into the warband and executes Mara Vinci as the discovered traitor. Presumably, it is also sometime after the Dark Communion mission as well, because the cutscene begins with Grendel chewing out Rannick for his failures.
You summoned me.
You have failed me, Iven. All this time and still Atoma is not secured.
No one is more disappointed than I. There have been complications.
No more excuses. My time is running out.
So is yours.
What do you mean?
Atoma was always under Marshal Voltaire's jurisdiction. You have exhausted his patience. He has sent forces to restore the tithe.
You have failed your duty. We have all failed. Atonement will come only when the tithe is restored. We shall triumph in the names of our fallen, and of those who still uphold the Lex. This is the Marshal's command. This is how it shall be. This is the will of the Lex.
He doesn't have the authority.
He speaks for holy law. That is his authority. He will test you.
Do not fail me again.
When do they arrive?
Right. So what's all this then? What's all this then?
Atoma now falls under the jurisdiction of the Adeptus Arbites.
Zorin's first memory takes place immediately after their introduction cutscene ends, showing us his confrontation with Morrow.
Your rabble had their chance.
Is that so? Well, sir, I answer to Grendel, and only to Grendel.
Sergeant Major, perhaps you'd be good enough to take your fulsome supply of tact elsewhere.
Rannick ushers Morrow away, taking the opportunity to deliver him a backhanded compliment that chides him for speaking out of turn to a senior officer of the Arbites.
You tolerate your people speaking that way?
I expect them to be free with their thoughts, those who are capable of thought anyway.
You believe yourself a clever man, don't you, Interrogator?
Only a fool argues with prevailing opinion.
Or with a senior arbitrator.
Quite so.
In private, Zorin asks incredulously if Rannick really condones people under his command behaving and speaking like Morrow, and Rannick surprises by saying indeed he does support it. Rannick could be lying here so as not to show what looks like weakness and insubordination in front of the Proctor, but I don't really think that's the case. Rannick coaches Zola in the Dark Communion, encouraging her to put trust in her strike team because she made the decision of selecting them, and she makes good decisions. He plays along with Hadron when she authorizes a mission he doesn't know about, sparring with her dry humor by delivering his own. He comes off as arrogant, condescending, and unlikable, probably at least partially because he knows that's what's expected of him. He's in a position where he knows no one he works with will like or trust him, so acting the part cuts straight to the point. But realistically, he frequently compliments our operatives in his own way and the officers under him. He trusts them and demonstrates this by encouraging their agency.
Let us speak plainly.
Indeed, let us do so. You have failed, Atoma. I will put that right. The order of the Lex Imperialis will reign once more. Your efforts are no longer needed.
You would cast aside an ally so readily?
Better that than suffer incompetence.
Charming. There is one thing that might change your mind.
Really?
A small, unassuming thing, relatively plain, and with but a single motif. An inquisitorial seal, in fact. Grendel's seal. It places me beyond your authority, unless you happen to have something similar. Splendid! Allies it is, then.
I'm gonna be honest, I think that Rannick might be taking a diplomatic gamble here and be daring Zorin to call his bluff. When the Arbites arrived, Grendel told Rannick that Atoma was always under Marshal Vorturn's control, and now he's come to exert that jurisdiction on them. Zorin is his Marshal's agent in this capacity, enacting the Marshal's will in his stead, much like Rannick wields Grendel's. Grendel warns Rannick of their arrival because he likely knows this is a difficult situation where their hands may be tied. A marshal is above the rank of judge within the Adeptus Arbites, and depending on your lore source, even a judge of the Arbites can stand up to an inquisitor with a similar level of authority. This is an excerpt from the Dark Heresy Ascension book, page 157. Although many consider themselves answerable to only the High Lords of Terra and the Emperor himself, in reality there exists a class of high-echelon Imperial servants, to which Inquisitors belong, all who wield more or less the same levels of influence. Such worthies include Imperial Governors, Imperial Guard Generals, Space Marine Chapter Masters, Rogue Traders, Lord Admirals, Adeptus Arbite judges, and sector-level representatives of the Administratum. Throughout Dan Abnett's different novels detailing the stories of Inquisitors such as Eisenhorn and Ravener, Inquisitors are depicted as holding incredible rank where they can flex their access to nearly anything they could desire across the Imperium in the name of chasing the enemies of mankind. However, there are times where they encounter resistance by different agents and officers across the Imperium. Sometimes it's secret traitors that reveal themselves and try to outright kill Inquisitors or sabotage their investigations. Sometimes it's loyal servants of the Emperor who do not appreciate feeling scrutinized by the gaze of the Inquisition and will cooperate with them only to the letter of what they are required or are prevented from complying by orders of a higher up. Political intrigue and delicate diplomatic situations are a common theme in these novels. These are important frames of reference to keep in mind. There may be lore purists who will balk at this interpretation and believe that anything short of Rannick executing anyone who would undermine his authority is not lore accurate and robs the Interrogator of his power. But in reality, Rannick behaving that way would not only be incredibly poor storytelling, it would also make Rannick a worse and less interesting character. One of the best things about a game like Darktide is these storytellers taking inspiration spread across countless pieces of existing lore and sources, molding them into something more grounded, and inviting us as an audience to participate in the living moments of that story. People in official government agencies and military structures act like people all the time. They'll break the chain of command, clash with ranking members of another department like their rivals, eschew orders in the name of doing what they think is right. We see it in other media. We see it in real life. We see it in 40K itself, not terribly infrequently. Darktide is a complicated story with complicated and flawed characters at the center of it. Interrogator Iven Rannick, chief among them. Those flaws make the juxtaposition of his strengths interesting and make him a fantastic foil for the equally flawed personalities of the other characters to shine by clashing with him.
I understand that I am required to maintain your arbitrator's war gear.
It was a request only. I was reminded that we are all allies.
Yes, I have repeatedly received the same reminder. Interrogator Rannick is an infuriating individual.
It is of great relief that you share my appraisal.
It's awfully telling that Hadron and Zorin's main gripe about Rannick is that he's reminding everyone that they should make an attempt to work together with as little friction as possible. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only middle managers asking you to be a little more friendly with your coworkers. Also, it's adorable how these two are making the most robotic, technically human connection I've ever seen.
If you will forgive me, Proctor Exactant. It is refreshing to encounter someone else who is concerned with efficiency.
Those who serve the Lex must always be efficient, for our duties are without end.
Sweet music to my receptors. Perhaps together we can rescue these varlets from their laxity.
Perhaps we may indeed.
Good golly Holly, get a room, you two. All right, I highly doubt that this is actually being treated like a meet cute, but it is really funny to see these two immediately autistically bonding over a driving desire of efficiency and a shared disdain for being told to get along with others exactly like they're getting along right now. So probably no Hadron romance story incoming, but I still ship it.
Finished prowling around yet?
Why? Do you offer such hostility when you know I could have you killed for it?
The way I see it, we're clearing up your mess. You were meant to keep Atoma in line.
You are not incorrect. This, more than your Inquisitor's seal, protects you.
This is a really interesting exchange. Because Zorin is not part of the Militarum, Morrow clearly feels comfortable not demonstrating his usual respect for rank and also making it clear that he has beef with the Arbites. The uprising should have never happened in the first place, much less gotten this bad under their watch. When Zorin stepped foot onto the Morning Star, he declared to Rannick that he and the Inquisition had failed Atoma, implying that the current mess is their fault and that they are no longer needed because the Arbites will handle it. So even though Zorin does know that he's responsible, he's also pointing the finger at someone else. And then of course there's Dukane, who swept in and declared herself commander-in-chief of the entire operation, believing that a military approach will be able to stop what is also in part a failing of the Militarum. The abuse that Wolfer and the Mobian 6 endured came to a head on the desolate planet of Knox Alpha, leading them to turn to the ruinous powers in hopes of achieving freedom. And that's the point. Everyone is busy pointing the finger at somebody else, trying to figure out where to place a blame that can't actually rest on any one individual or agency. The situation on Atoma is everyone's fault. Admonition didn't just become strong because of an oversight by the Arbites. The Mobian 6 didn't fall just because Commissar Magson was a dick. Tertium is besieged by Nurgle because the Imperium itself is a failed system that collapses under its own weight. The common man crushed under the never-ending thirst for blood that fuels war and greed.
We will atone for our failure. Will you stand with us?
Yes, sir.
Zorin's tone changes here. He sounds significantly more sincere and almost hesitant in asking Morrow to accept his offer that they treat each other as equals. It's a moment where he's symbolically lowering himself in status in recognition that Rannick was right. They must work together. Morrow still sounds a bit hostile, but adding "sir" at the end is likely a positive sign that he at least respects Zorin for recognizing the Arbites' own failings and his desire to make it right.
I understand you've spoken to my senior staff.
Most. Explicator Zola is avoiding me.
Is she? Is she, Zorin? Is Zola avoiding you? In all seriousness, this isn't the first time we've heard about Zola avoiding new officers. Dukane has mentioned that she hadn't had the chance to meet with Zola after coming on board the Morning Star too. And it makes complete sense. Zola is a former gangster of the Water Cartel. An effective one, making a lucrative amount of money, at least as far as gangers go. She's been hunted by the Enforcers, and there's a makeshift precinct fortress in the Torrent put together expressly for the purposes of the Arbites trying to rein in the Water Cartel's activities. It's literally one of the precincts you can choose your arbitrator is from when you make a new character. So yeah, Zola probably isn't going to be the most comfortable chatting with a cop. If Morrow is at risk of being put down by Zorin just because he's sassy, what would Zorin do if he discovered Zola was a favored agent of the Ragged King? It'd probably make staff meetings awkward at the very least.
I can't say I'm surprised. I vouch for her loyalty.
Rannick understands this too. After all, he was the one who dirtied his boots going to the Torrent to recruit her and give her a way out when the Ragged King wanted her head on a plate for shorting him on his cut of the money she was taking. But Rannick also knows that Zola's past is firmly in the past, and the issues that Zola and he have butted heads over, the reject program, her interrogating the Ragged King, the Orthus offensive, all of it stems from Zola deeply caring about the future of Atoma and feeling a personal responsibility to see the planet saved. No doubt, Zola also has a personal agenda to find out the truth about Wolfer, but even though she personally hates Atoma and Tertium, wishing to have never returned to the planet ever again, she is willing to make massive sacrifices and do whatever necessary to save the people down there.
We shall see if that is sufficient. For now, I remain content.
Then let us be to business. Atoma awaits.
Yes, indeed.
Rannick concluding with Atoma awaits feels like the beginning of a new chapter. Act 1 of Darktide's story may have concluded with the Dark Communion, the destruction of Messalina Vengeant, and the forming of new bonds and allies in a scenario where Rannick could have easily ended up having to fight against Dukane and Zorin instead. For now, they will work together to safeguard the future of Atoma. Honestly, this added insight into the internal effort to keep Rannick in the dark as much as possible, along with how well he handled these forceful interlopers, kinda makes me feel concerned for his safety in the future. If I'm right, and Act 1 is now at a close, we may be in for some dramatic developments for our heroes in Act 2, and the danger of that, including the death of familiar faces, is always looming. Only future updates for Darktide can tell as we wait to discover more about... No, seriously, what the fuck is happening in Darktide? Obey my cat! Join the Discord, come to a stream and I'll help you with penances. Support me on Patreon or become a YouTube channel member. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you out there against the Darktide. Thank you so much for watching and for your support. Special shout out to my top supporters, Leah S., Andrew Brown, Cabus, Rich, William McQueen, Ben, Darkslide, Cameron, Commander Orf, Ginge Dread, Yellow 13, Ripped Limbo, El Zunix, Epic Gamer, Cthulhu625, Mr. Schrodinger, Spazatron, Jason Clark, Hee, Mateo, CT5334, Evan Berger, Yin, Bad Cat, Sexy Rotfly, Kron Chaos, Daniel Gerber, The Thunder Guardian, Aubrey Bessie, Freedom Frank, Macro, Nicholas Lucas, Mr. Matchbox, Noctis 2341, Benjamin Rannick, Misanthropocene, I Am Mordred, Ryu Jin, Frederico Lopez, Epsy, Cassie Bear, Spooky Spoopy, Cyber Leader Andy, Crafty, Nick Newsome, Lormock, Martin Grimes, Ms. Blackfire, and Big Guy.